Hi friends, welcome to my great cookie experiment. That's what I'm gonna call it. I really should not be eating sugar right now, but it's what I wanna do, and so I'm going to. So this week's episode is gonna be all about making the perfect cookie. Let's get started. So I honestly have no reason to be baking cookies right now other than I want to. I really shouldn't, but I want to. And I kind of nerded out on cookie science this week, and I'm just curious if I can make the perfect sugar cookie and the perfect chocolate chip cookie. I have a recipe that I really love, like it's a bomb, but I kind of want to just see if I can come up with my own. I think that cookies are different for everybody, right? So your perfect cookie might be thin and crispy. Somebody else's might be really fudgy. My ideal cookie is going to be chewy, not too fudgy, not too cakey, and like crispy. Not crunchy, but crispy. Not, do you know what I'm saying? Nuts are crunchy. Potato chips are crispy. Croissants, crispy. Pretzels are crunchy. Do you see where I'm going with this? I want crispy on the outside. I want a very chewy cookie, almost like I gotta pull it apart. And then moist on the inside, but not, I want it set. So those are my cookie requirements. I found a recipe on TikTok that I'm going to use as like the controlled sugar cookie recipe, and it does have rainbow sprinkles, and I'm gonna put them in to every batch because I feel like, why not? Let's get started. There's a couple different elements in sugar cookies. First of all, the flour that you use is going to make a huge difference. For example, cake flour is going to make like a very fluffy cookie. So we're just gonna use an all-purpose flour because I'm going for a denser cookie. White sugar helps the cookie to kind of crystallize. And so I think that's going to add to that crispiness that I'm looking for. But brown sugar adds some chewiness and moisture. And then finally, butter. A lot of cookie recipes will have you whip the butter and sugar, and that will incorporate air into the batter. That will lead to a fluffier cookie. Melted butter makes a nice dense cookie. Browned butter is supposed to make the cookie have more of a caramelized nutty flavor. So I'm kind of thinking a combination of both might be very interesting. This recipe I found on TikTok, I am gonna just start with this, and this calls for just melted butter. So we're just gonna go simple for this round. 2 tablespoons melted butter. Here we go. 2 tablespoons of white sugar, and then 1 teaspoon of brown sugar. The light brown sugar has less molasses. The dark brown sugar has more molasses, so it's gonna be a little bit more moist. So I'm gonna start with light brown sugar. I'm going to whisk this together. $40 grams of flour. 1/8 teaspoon salt, 1/8 teaspoon baking soda, and 3 tablespoons of sprinkles. We recently lost our tablespoon. I'm just measuring everything in teaspoons, and 3 teaspoons equals 1 tablespoon. So we'll put 9 teaspoons in here. And we'll add in the dry ingredients. And we don't want to overmix this because if you do, you start to work the gluten. So we're just gonna combine this, which actually You can do this by hand or you can switch to your paddle. I'm having fun. Are you having fun? They're in the oven and I have a timer set for 8 minutes, so we'll see if that's like the proper bake time. Okay, I'm about to take the first batch out. I'm so excited. Okay, okay. They don't look bad. They're a little crackly. So this is them right out of the oven. They're still like way too soft to handle, so I just have to let the sugar kind of crystallize and firm up. To me, they look a little bit dry. The bottom actually looks pretty good. It's like nice and browned, but not burnt. And then the top and sides are still very like creamy and golden. I'm going to take the other batch that has been chilled for like, maybe it's been like 20 minutes it's been in the fridge. So I just want to see if it like reacts differently at all being chilled. And what I think is going to happen is these ones are going to be a little bit fluffier. So yeah, already this is like a much thicker dough. Into the oven, these ones will go. 8 minutes and we'll see how it reacts. They are much fluffier, much less crackly. They're like little mound cookies. And also, they may actually need a little bit more time in there because they were cooler to go in. The temperature was lower. So I don't know if they cooked quite as much, but that was my suspicion. So at least I know what I'm doing somewhat. I'm gonna try this first cookie. It's still slightly warm. She's crispy. Listen. Do you hear that? Okay, this is a really, really good sugar cookie. I think I want to try browned butter. I'm gonna keep everything else the same, but try browned butter just to bring in like a more nutty, caramely flavor. But otherwise, I'm not gonna change anything else on this batch, and I'm gonna go give the rest of this to Chase.
Good job.
It's not my recipe, it's the girl on TikTok.
You still made it.
Well, I followed a recipe.
Yeah, but I follow a recipe for everything I make, and you still say good job.
Yeah, I do say good job.
You don't mean it?
I always mean it. We're both pretty obsessed with that cookie. It's really good. I feel like it's like kind of exactly what I was looking for in a sugar cookie. But we're experimenting here, right? Despite being like fully cooked through, a little bit brown on the bottom, this still has like kind of a gooey center. It's really good. It's a good cookie. Let's go again. I think I might have this memorized now. It looks a little bit softer to me. But as it sits, it actually kind of firms up a little bit as well. So let's see how this one comes out going right into the oven at room temperature. And while we wait, we're gonna try this one. I think it's like essentially the same, maybe just like a little bit doughier. I'm like trying to eat it exactly in half so I can go give the other half to Chase. I think this is basically the same cookie. If this had gone in the oven for maybe like 12 minutes, it probably would have come out the same as the control. So I'm gonna give this to Chase and I'll be right back. Okay, these are the browned butter cookies straight out of the oven. I think they're gonna settle, and I'm pretty sure this is what the control batch looked like when it came out of the oven, so I'm expecting that this is just going to be a difference of taste. I'm gonna try whipped butter in this one, but I am going to do dark brown sugar to incorporate a little bit more moisture, and I think that will actually like weigh it down a little bit, so we'll see if this kind of like levels things out, or if there's no difference at all. It's actually like much more thick. It's not runny like the other batches. So I think this will change things a little bit. See, it's got like a little bit more substance to it. So I put out some fresh parchment paper and let's get these on and in the oven. Okay, it's a hard job, but somebody has to do it. I'm gonna taste. I'm really excited for this one. This is the brown butter, and I added more vanilla this time. And I baked it exactly the same as the first one. So those are the only differences. Okay, you ready? It has like overall more of a cookie flavor. And I think a little bit more chew. Ooh, I like it. It's pretty crispy too. I like it. I'm gonna give the rest of this to Chase. Okay, these are the whipped butter ones. Oh, they're really fluffy. Okay, so I've got the brown butter cookies that have been chilled in the oven now, and these whipped cookies are so strange. The only difference between this and the controlled is that the butter was whipped instead of melted. I put 1 tablespoon less sprinkles, and then I used dark brown sugar and a little more vanilla. They turned out really quite flat. They were kind of like super puffy coming out of the oven, and then they deflated and they're like a very thin cookie. So I'm interested to see what those taste like and what the texture is once they're cooled. But they look very different than the other ones. I don't know if it's because the butter was whipped and then deflated when it cooled. I would have thought there would be more spreadability with melted butter, but it could also be the extra moisture from the dark brown sugar. So I'm gonna try this whipped butter cookie. These are pretty good. I feel like I might have used salted butter. This is not salted. For some reason, the salt's just like coming through in this one. Whoops, I accidentally ate the whole thing. I have another one for Chase. I don't like how thin it is. Hi friends, it is day 2 of the Great Cookie Experiment, and I've got some sleep, I've rested my brain. I think I've got the recipe that I like. I'm going to try and recreate it, and I will share it with you. Before we start, let me recap on what we have. This is the control cookie. It's a very good cookie. It's delicious. It's crispy and chewy and moist. However, I wanted to see if I could give it a more richer flavor and a more chewy texture. So I made, I think, at least like 5 recipes. And what I think I ended up liking the most is this cookie. This one is brown butter. It has a bit more salt, a bit more vanilla, and what else did I? Oh, I used bread flour instead of the regular all-purpose flour. So it resulted in a thicker, kind of like chewier cookie. I'm gonna go back to this one. I've melted my butter, I've cooled it, and so I'm gonna give you that recipe. Okay, so we're starting off with the browned butter. This has been cooled to actually a little bit cooler than room temperature, so it's almost starting to solidify again. So this is 1 ounce of browned butter. To that, I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of white granulated sugar and 1 tablespoon of golden brown sugar. Okay, to this, we're gonna add 1 egg yolk and 1 whole teaspoon of vanilla. My mom always used to come and find me even if I wasn't baking with her in the room, and she would bring the blue ribbon vanilla so that I could smell it every time she made cookies. Some habits you just can't break. And then we'll just whip that together. I'm gonna switch to my paddle attachment. So here we have 50 grams of bread flour, a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and 1/8 teaspoon of baking soda. There's about 2 tablespoons of rainbow sprinkles. You can adjust that based on your preference, but it really gives the cookie a really nice crunch. So I kind of took it back from the original recipe because I felt like there was like a bit too much, but it's okay to have a lot. And we're just gonna mix this until combustion. So it's just come together. It's a pretty thick dough, and I am going to just kind of incorporate the rest with the spatula. I think this is gonna be a winner. It's so fun to do like cookie science because it really does matter, like the bake time, the temperature of your ingredients, when you add them, when they incorporate together. It's a pretty cool process. This is like a pretty good dough. This is what I would think of when I think of a cookie dough. It's thick, it's a dough, it's not a batter. So I'm just taking like a very nice kind of compacted cookie scoop, leveling it off, and you can already see that they have some like cragginess in them because the dough is a little bit drier. It has a little bit more flour in it, which I think gives it that nice craggy top. I'm gonna put these into an oven at 350 for 10 minutes and just wait until you see. I think this is gonna be a consistent, perfect cookie. I think we have the ultimate sugar cookie. Now, bear in mind, this is my ultimate sugar cookie. This is a cookie that's crispy, yet chewy and soft and really moist. I haven't actually eaten it yet, but I've made similar batches, so I know what it's gonna taste like. Look at that beautiful structure. It's not super dense, but it's not like super fluffy either. Oh my gosh. I did it. I did it, you guys, I did it. This is so good. This is so good. Let me show you something though. So the only difference between these two cookies is I used light brown sugar in this one, and the brown butter wasn't quite cooled in this one as much as this one, which in turn I think helped dissolve some of the sugar, which is why we ended up with this like uniform kind of like bubbly, crispy, flat texture, as opposed to this that has much more like chunkiness to it. Nice big ripples, and this is just a beauty queen of a cookie, which just goes to show you how important bake time and temperature and like the temperature of your ingredients going in, how long you whip the butter and sugar together, all of these things make a big impact in your final cookie. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me through this process. This has actually been very therapeutic and fun, and I'm just so excited with the end result. It's such a silly thing, but I feel really good that I persevered through and I ended up with a cookie that I'm really proud of. I've posted the full recipe on my blog, so if you want to follow the step-by-step instructions, which I highly recommend because, like I said, temperature, timing, just the smallest ratio of ingredient changes really impacts the cookie in a big way. I think at the start of this video, I was going to make chocolate chip cookies as well, which I'm always way too ambitious. So clearly that is a project for another video, but I'm sure there will be lots more baking going on because we are still stuck inside for the time being, and I don't think I'll be thrifting anytime soon. Until next time, stay safe, be sweet, and I'll see you next week.